Hello, everyone, and welcome to Cold Outreach Success Stories, where we interview regular business people just like you who've had a lot of success with cold outreach on email and other channels. We go deep into their process with hot tips around targeting, messaging, and personalization so that you can take away some tips to implement in your cold outreach starting tomorrow. Today, we have Dr. Jean Ouslear from Caveman Brain. Welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate being here.
Awesome, Jean. So let's get right into it. What does Caveman Brain do and how do you guys make money?
So we have something called the Caveman Brain Business Growth System. And what we do is we work with primarily professional services organizations to help them increase their new business development. Because we find that lots of people who are in those professional services do not really go into them to be business development people, but they have to be. So they have a lot of challenges around feeling pushy, salesy, aggressive, or they don't know what to say, or they don't know where to find people. And our system helps them learn how to have a repeatable process that they can then use over and over again so they feel really good about doing new business development.
Awesome. That sounds great. I mean, that's the typical problem that we see with professional service business owners, right? Like they're probably great at what they do. I'm sure they're great at what they do, but they didn't really sign up to be a business developer, right? And then suddenly they find themselves in that role and then they're struggling. It's not natural to be a great business developer. So let's get deeper into that. In terms of your own client acquisition, let's get deeper into that. What kind of clients do you typically work with?
So in terms of the firms that we work with, we tend to work with lawyers, accountants, financial advisors, business owners. So really people who became a lawyer, they became a physician, they became a business owner because they were really good at something, right? They had a lot of good technical skills. You could think about the E-Myth, but now they need to bring in more business. So it's not just upselling, it's really about new business that they can bring in. And a lot of people have a hard time figuring out where to find people that want to have their services, or they have a lot of mental blocks about going out and talking to people and asking for business because they feel that it's just not appropriate. And we find that reason why we call it Caveman Brain is because we take a psychological approach. We talk about the amygdala, which is your internal protection system, think fight, flight, or freeze. And what prevents you from moving forward in business development is often something that's happening in your neurological pathways based on your childhood, your parents, your culture, or your life experiences. And once we figure out what's preventing you from moving forward, and are the things that you're telling yourself is truth or not, then we harness the power of your brain along with our system to be able to move you to be more successful in new business development. And it doesn't take that long. It takes about 5 hours a week is what we tell people. And it's a repeatable system. So we talk about alignment, accountability, expansion, and brain chunk. And the idea is that in alignment, do you know your ideal target client like your science project? Remember when we were all in 4th grade and we had to write about whales and volcanoes, right? Most people don't. And also most people don't describe their target audience in a way that other people can help them. Like I was talking to a woman the other day, I met at a networking event. And I said to her, well, who do you work with? And she said, I work with the marginally executive in corporate America. And I thought, well, who is that? Right. So we have to describe it as someone who is that makes sense for us. So I work with corporate executives who are of minority who want to be more in the boardroom. Like, well, then that makes a lot more sense than marginalized executives, right? Can you see the difference? And most people don't describe them very well. And then most people also don't have really good stories. They're not aligned in their stories. Like I met an accountant and he says, I work with business owners. Okay, lots of different business owners. But the fact is that, and then he gave me a story about how he worked with a young couple with a baby. Well, again, out of alignment. So we find that lots of people are out of alignment, and then they don't use the right, what we call marketing attraction vehicles, ways to find people to bring to you. Then accountability, most people are not good at holding themselves accountable because they'd rather do the work than go out and do new business development. But then once you do those two things really well, you want to do more because really what you're doing is you're finding people who have the problems that you can solve. You're making friends and solving problems, which most of us are really good at.
Mhm.
And then when that happens, then you end up in mind junk again, where you're like, oh, how do I do this? And then it's just a circle that continuously repeats itself.
I love that. I absolutely love that. I mean, as somebody, I actually used to work in computational neuroscience. So when you bring up amygdala, that brings me back to my comp neuro class, where they teach you is the small thing in this right in the center of your brain, right? And then that's what's holding you back from going to the next level in your business, and setting up these strategies and actually becoming a business owner rather than just working in your business. So I love that connection you guys make, and I love that you guys take a neurological approach to this whole thing. A lot of people don't, right? Versus what we really see is ultimately it's what you think that's holding you back. So I absolutely love it.
Thank you. And it's true. I mean, so many people have so many things that are holding them back. I was talking to a business owner, and she doesn't like the assumptive close. And I
Mhm.
said to her, well, then how do you sell? She goes, I hate when people do the assumptive close to me. So I said to her, well, how you sell is how you buy. So if
Right.
you don't buy in the way that you want to sell, you have to change your buying process. And she was
Mhm.
like, wait, what? I'm like, yeah.
Right. Makes a ton of sense. So let's get into the tactics now. How do they find clients? Is it more of cold email, cold LinkedIn, Facebook? How does one figure out where their clients might be?
So what we say is that you should take the client that you love, the one that you work with right now that you love so much. We call it Mimi because was mine. I only had one. I loved Mimi. Mimi was my favorite client. And then I described Mimi in vivid detail. Like I was painting a picture, like I was taking Mimi to a friend. So a friend's house, and I said, hey, Mimi's going to show up before I do. And here's everything you need to know about Mimi. This is what Mimi
I
looks
see.
like. This is what Mimi sounds like. This is Mimi's problems, Mimi, right? And this is where Mimi hangs out. This is the type of things that Mimi consumes.
Mhm.
So that you have to go where your Mimi is, wherever that might be. And most of us don't do that. We don't really think about it. We kind of like hang out in LinkedIn or Instagram or TikTok. But the
Mhm.
reality is that depending on who your client is, they're consuming social media, or they're in person, or they're hybrid. There's someplace.
Mhm.
That's where you have to go to find your clients, is
Mhm.
where are they hanging out? And that's what you can download it from our website. We have an actual marketing traction vehicle. So you can look at, there's like, 75 different vehicles that you can use as
Right.
to where your person is hanging out. So you can cold call, right? But where are they hanging out to cold call them?
Mhm.
We have lots of clients who figure out who they want to cold call. And then we send what we call a crappy little letter.
Mhm.
And it's basically a headline with like, this is your problems. And then that
Right.
opens up a warm call that you can now, hey, did you get my letter? I want to talk about it. So where are you hanging out, and how do you attract them to you is really the most important thing.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So let's say we figured out where they hang out. Let's say we're there. Let's talk about messaging now. How do we actually get their attention?
Yes. So messaging seems to be the hardest thing for people. People just don't know what to say.
Yeah.
So, and it really depends on where you are in the process. So we have something called Z to A thinking. So
Mhm.
we say you have to start at the end in mind. So what is it that you want? Like, I want a new client, and then you work backwards. So you have all the steps.
Mhm.
If you're like, say you're in person at a networking event, you're not there to sell them. You're there to
Mhm.
get the meeting. And the
Right.
reality is most of the tactics that you're using is to get a meeting. But
Right.
most people try and sell the person before the
I
meeting.
see.
So the reality is you're just there to be like, hey, I want to just get a date and time on your calendar to talk about this problem that you have, whether it's a latent need or a blatant lead, and therefore I can help you fix it. So
Mhm.
I'm really just looking for a meeting in many places. And then once it's in the meeting, then I can talk about all of their problems and what that looks like. The
Mhm.
way our brains work, we're like file cabinets. So we have
Mhm.
file cabinets with file folders with pieces of paper. If
Mhm.
I meet you at a networking event and I just start selling you or
Mhm.
talking about how to solve your problem, the challenge is that you're not in a place that I can hear you. So even if I'm
Correct.
cold calling you, I'm just cold calling you for a meeting,
Mhm.
because I'm interrupting you. And it's not a bad thing, but you're in your day doing a bunch of things and you don't have the brain space
Mhm.
in the right file cabinet, file folder with the right piece of paper to really listen to what I'm talking about. So I'm
Mhm.
just really calling to get a meeting on your calendar to talk about what might happen. And people who are not interested, fine. And then the people who are will take the meeting. So the reality is I'm not wasting my time with a tire kicker, because it's a meeting that we're going to actually have a conversation. And I
Mhm.
think the other challenge is that people really are trying to appear like I'm smart. So I'm trying to
Mhm.
tell you everything, so I'm smart. But the
Mm.
reality is you want to ask a lot of questions so
Mhm.
that they make the decision of, oh, I really need this.
Makes a ton of sense to me. In fact, that's one of the metrics we use now on our sales calls. We monitor something called the talk to listen ratio. So if you're a salesperson and you're talking for more than 40% of the call, then it's probably not a great call, right? Because you're not hearing, right? So we have software even today to monitor our salespeople's conversation, and anytime that that little pointer goes above 50%, I try to have a conversation like, why did this go above 50%? Could you have asked more questions? So it's so important to have these quantitative pieces in as well.
I agree 100%. And it really does, asking questions gets the other person to make the decision for themselves. We
Mhm.
call it being a facilitator buyer. And then you won't ever feel pushy, salesy, or aggressive either when you're doing that.
Awesome. That brings me to my next question. Mistakes. What are some of the mistakes that you made when you first started doing this cold outreach thing?
So some of the mistakes that I made was I didn't have the right messaging, and I was messaging from my point of view as opposed to my client's point of view. So I would tell people, and I still do this, but people aren't interested, is I help people make money.
Yeah.
That's what I would say to people is like, I help you make money.
Yeah.
And people just did not resonate with that messaging, which I find so fascinating because I want to make money. Don't you want to make money? Right. But people didn't like that messaging. And that's when I realized that I couldn't speak in my own language. I had to speak in their language because my messaging wasn't really resonating.
Mhm.
Okay. And then I have a one of our coaches, he says, I don't know why people are allergic to money. I'm like, well, like,
Yeah. What happened?
okay.
Yeah.
So so having the wrong messaging
Mhm.
is really, it's probably my biggest mistake that I made.
Interesting. All right. That now brings me to my final question. What are some of the things that you're excited about?
In terms of new business, so I'm really excited about GeneBot and our online course, because we realize that we do work with a lot of individuals and corporate clients, but we really want to push out into a space where we can help everyone. Our mission is to leave you better than we found you.
Mhm.
So the fact is that we have this great new online course that will help people do this new business development process really easily. And then we're going to lay over in 2024, Dr. Jean, so you can hear all of my fabulous things, because I really think AI, I really do believe that coaching and training is going to move into a bot,
Mhm.
and we're going to have all of this great training in front of us.
Mhm.
And the challenges for us as salespeople is, how do we keep up with all of the technology that's happening?
Right.
And how do we really find our clients? Because we're going to have to hone even better the offerings that we have. Everyone's always going to need something. There's always going to be a salesperson.
Mhm.
But the way that we go after them is maybe no longer in person. Maybe it's going to be a bot that's going to talk to them. Maybe, like everyone's going to be using AI. I realize the metaverse is dead, but hey, at the same time,
Yeah.
right? Generation Z is now, pushing a lot of different things.
Right.
And right.
The young people are crazy. They were born with like a phone in their hand. So I think I think what they are doing is just next level. All right, so that's all the time we have for you, Dr. Jean. This is so awesome. I love your approach. I love your energy to helping these service business owners do a better job at business development. For all the people who want to find more about you, learn more about you, where can they find you so that we can link it in the show notes?
Oh, so you can go to cavemanbrain.com. And we have downloadable tools. We have videos. If you want to work with us individually, if you want to sign up for the course, if you want to work with us in your company, all the information is there. So you can get us there. And I also say this on every podcast, but no one's taking me up on it. If you have any questions about anything in terms of business development, email me at jean@cavemanbrain.com, and I will be happy to answer your question.
Awesome. Thanks for hopping on, Dr. Jean.
Thank you so much for having me. This is awesome. Thank you.
So that's all the time we have, folks. I really enjoyed the episode. I hope you did too. Please subscribe, like, share, comment, whatever you can to spread the word out about cold outreach success stories so more people can enjoy and learn from the show. All right, that's all, folks. Bye-bye.